Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines, our daily get-together here on Facebook Live, 10:30 every day of the week. Today is Tuesday, July 28th, and as always, we get together to share and talk about the latest headlines and stories that we come across as they relate to our lives here in Puerto Vallarta as an English-speaking community. It is always great to see many friends that join us on a daily basis or quite frequently, but it is also great to see people that are new to these broadcasts. If you are new, my name is Paco, and feel free to write the word new in your comment so that we can give you a proper welcome. Also, feel free to put the letter Q before a question if you have a very specific question that you'd like us to address during the broadcast. We try to get to all the Q comments during the broadcast, but if we miss something, like I missed the weather forecast yesterday, we get to your questions during the day. As always, it's great to see you. It's great to see familiar faces. Renee's in the house, Karen's in the house, Julie is in the house, Kathleen is in the house. I hope you're continuing to be hooked with the podcast that we were talking about the other day. We were talking about Blockbuster, this wonderful podcast about the life of movie director James Cameron. So now that we're here, today we have all kinds of little bit of this and a little bit of that to talk about. Of course, there's always some new news regarding COVID-19, but we're also going to talk about Mexico's presidential plane because you may hear locals talking about it. It's been it's been in the news. Mark Hartman asks, are all my yellow shirts at the laundry? Yes, right now I'm in the blue season and I'm going to be blue. I'm blue because of my car, but we'll get to that in a second. My orange and yellow shirts are in the washer cycle, literally, as I speak. So anyhow, today we get to talk about presidential plane. We get to talk about COVID stuff. We get to talk about egg poachers. Just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So let me take a quick look at your comments. I am so glad you're enjoying Blockbuster, Kathleen. I think it's absolutely wonderful. To think that the one phrase that Arnold Schwarzenegger did not want to use in the movie Terminator was, "I'll be back." I mean, that's the one thing that he argued with the director about. And of course, the director had his way. Arnold had to try his bad accent, and we know the rest of that story. Anyhow, let's get going because we have news and stories to share, and off we go. Okay, for starters, for better or for worse, another local paper echoed the words posted by our governor, Enrique Alfaro, saying this is the week in which we decide if we close for 14 days or not. There isn't much more meat to this news item, just because this is still stemming from what was shared when he shared the latest figures for for Jalisco. Sorry about that. I took a quick look at Governor Alfaro's Facebook account this morning and his Twitter account, and there are no new news related to the COVID-19 pandemic, or more specifically to the possibility of shutting down the state for 14 days. So we're still all on standby, and we are going to have to continue to wait and see. Meanwhile, unfortunately, we learned that the state of Jalisco's Congress has been, regardless of the news about whether the state closes, the Congress has closed in our state for 2 weeks because of cases of COVID-19. It was decided that the Congress would cease operations for 2 weeks because there are enough cases among Congress people and their collaborators that it was decided that it would be better if Congress would just shut down and wait for things to clear. And according to this news item, Congress will not come back to work until Friday, August the 7th. In case you were wondering about vaccines and all that stuff, this um, vaccine developer says you don't want to be throwing away your mask if you get a vaccine because we won't go back to any kind of normal overnight. This was said by Maria Elena Botazzi, a vaccine developer at Baylor College of Medicine. Um, uh, she said even if the first vaccines pass muster in clinical trials, they're likely to be only moderately effective. So this is something that you may want to explore. Not that we can just walk down the street to OXXO and get a vaccine or anything, but I'm just saying. There's been some development now. I believe, there's 3 different vaccines that are being developed, but still, it's one of those things in which it ain't gonna happen overnight. A new side effect from coronavirus that I certainly don't have to worry about. Some coronavirus patients are experiencing hair loss, and this is attributed to the stress and trauma of going through the experience. While the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention doesn't recognize hair loss as a symptom of COVID 19, more than 27% of at least 1,100 poll respondents reported hair loss. So, if Paul Christ is in the house, well, Paul has a variety of fabulous wigs, and he can probably hook you up with one. No, that was not funny. I shouldn't have gone there. Never mind. Hair loss, imagine that. Meanwhile, just to add some icing to the cake, the World Health Organization reveals that just in the last 6 weeks alone, the number of COVID cases around the world has doubled. How crazy. I mean, January used to be quite lovely, and then all of a sudden, all this stuff happened. Good heavens. I found this interesting. Well, Catherine, my friend Catherine, shared this interesting article with me. It comes from El Financiero, which is a Bloomberg publication here in Mexico. And it talks about how Mexicans that don't want to deal with private hospitals are having to sell everything so that they can handle the high cost of getting COVID and going through the treatment. The article is quite sad because it is making the economic situation of many Mexicans to shift closer to poverty. It is said that the average cost for treatment of these patients is about 435,000 pesos if they are insured with a major insurance package. And it's a lot higher if people are not medically insured. And then the article makes a breakdown at the bottom of the actual costs that are actually inaccessible, from having to spend a night at a hospital to having to go through intensive care and whatnot. So this is really, really scary. I also found this. I love this photograph because it speaks so much about our times. There's this article on Vox that deals with how coronavirus is making us all socially awkward. And it is. I mean, we go out and run into friends that we haven't seen in a while. And I mean, do we give them the elbow, or do we give them a hug, or what do we do? And, it gets even worse when you go and visit families and relatives you haven't seen for a while. And it's even worse if you're actually trying to date someone. So this is something that is worth interest. It's worth reading if you're interested in sociology. I am, and I thought it was fascinating and fascinatingly true, unfortunately. Back to local news. There is a local man from Las Juntas that was busted with 94 sea turtle eggs. I don't know if this was out of desperation, ignorance, or stupidity, but this apparently happened on the path to Boca de Tomates, which is a beautiful beach north of Puerto Vallarta. They saw he was carrying a backpack. They asked him, well, are you a biologist or not? And he says, well, no, I'm not a biologist. So he is now in jail, and it's going to be determined what's going to happen with him. We're going to continue to follow this story. Speaking of follow-up, I want to get back to this thing that we reported about the new taxi concessions in Puerto Vallarta because now I've had a chance to learn more about it. None of it is good, but I think there's some context that is interesting to learn about. A few days ago, we reported that 155 new taxi licenses had been authorized for Puerto Vallarta, like we need them, or like we need 155 more vehicles occupying parking spaces in some parts of town. But anyhow, this has happened, and this has actually literally happened. It was not an announcement, it is happening. And there is some behind the scenes context for this. This goes back to the fact that in November 2018, November 17 actually, there was a study that revealed that Puerto Vallarta at that time needed 445 new taxi units. Go figure, whatever. Out of those 445, 290 were delivered during the last administration. And now it's decided, well, the missing 155 must have to be delivered because it was determined almost 3 years ago that we needed them, like nothing has changed or anything. Anyhow, what the government has said is that these new taxi licenses will only be available to drivers that have been driving for other taxi owners. What tends to happen a lot is somebody will buy a concession, they're very expensive, and then will put somebody else to drive their vehicle. So if these new authorizations, these new licenses are only going to be available for people who have been driving somebody else's car. And that's to provide those people with a benefit. Does that mean, again, that we actually need all these other taxis floating or driving around the city? I don't think so, but I'm just telling you the news so that you can be part of the conversation. I also want to follow up on the unfortunate passing of a woman in Yelapa whom was originally thought was of foreign extraction. It turns out that she is actually a Mexican woman from Guadalajara with the name of America Saavedra Avalos. She was 28 years of age, where she worked in Guadalajara as an English teacher. Apparently, she was detected floating face up, wearing a life vest, and there are some wounds on her head that would indicate that she may have been riding one of those aquatic motorcycles and may have lost control of it. But as usual, the details continue to be a little bit on the sketchy side. This is a very sad bit of news, and I thought I would follow it up just because you had asked. Before we move on to the presidential plane, let me take a quick look at your comments so far to make sure that we don't miss out on anything important. Bam, 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 bam. Do, 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 do. Another shout out for a local place. That's great to hear that Mark had a good time at the Leek and Thistle pie place with our friend Mark, the Scottish pie guy. He is absolutely amazing, and we happy to see that he's doing well. Here's a shout out for Alex's Sausage House. This is good to know as well. I haven't had the pleasure, but I'm glad to learn, and maybe I'll add them to my list of let's try this sometime in the near future. Let's see. Yes, absolutely. And I tell you, Logan, I think you'll appreciate the article. Let's see. Linda asks, did that take into consideration Uber? I don't think so, Linda, because I don't even remember if we had Uber at the time. Again, the reason why we've been talking about this, and I brought it up before, is because the taxi cab syndicate, is it syndicate? Yes. Hold on just a second. Alexa, ¿cómo se dice sindicato en inglés? Union, never mind. Alexa's not even paying attention to me. The taxi cab union in the state of Jalisco is extremely powerful, so they always find a way to finagle these permits, and this is very very unfortunate because again, I don't really think that we need more taxi cabs in this city. Is Sunland still on for this coming weekend? I couldn't tell you, Gouda. I know we hope it isn't, but again, I don't know. I sure hope not. Union, says Gigi, and yes, that's exactly what I said. Thank you very much for that. So let me tell you about the Mexico's presidential plane. So once upon a time, we had a plane, which was the presidential plane, and it served like four administrations. I believe most of those administrations were of the PRI party, and the PRI party is known for its lavish, excessive expenditures. Anyhow, when Enrique Peña Nieto was president of Mexico in the last administration, he decided that it was time to get a new plane. And of course, no money was spared. A ginormous, I think it's a Boeing 787, was purchased for Mexico's president, and it was estimated that this gorgeous new plane, because it was made in 2010, would serve for like the next 40 years or so. Yeah, it's a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, and it cost 2,952 million pesos. It was actually purchased by Felipe Calderon. That's two presidents ago. The plane was barely used by Enrique Peña Nieto, but no expense was spared in the creation in the furnishing of this plane. I think I'm going to be able to show you some photos in a second, if not in this news item, in the next one. Anyhow, the reason why I mention this is because when Andrés Manuel López Obrador became president of Mexico, he said that he was never going to use the plane. He said, "I'm going to fly on commercial airlines, and we're going to sell the plane or give it away in." We will not use the plane. For Peña Nieto, the plane was a symbol of lavishness. But of course, the fact that you choose not to use a plane does not mean that you can just put it somewhere. You know, the plane needs to be maintained. So ever since López Obrador decided to sell the plane, which was at the beginning of his presidential period, they've been trying to sell this brand spanking new plane. Nobody seems to want to buy it. Meanwhile, the plane had to be flown to California for maintenance, and the plane just came back to Mexico. And this is what some of it looks like on the inside. I don't know if you can see, there's a Stairmaster there next to a little desk station, and it has a full bed, and it has an area for mere mortals to, sit down, and another area for more powerful than mortals to sit down. Look at it. It has a full freaking toilet. Like, imagine sitting on that thing with turbulence. Anyhow, the plane is back in Mexico, and Presidente López Obrador said, "There's no way I'm sitting on that thing." So they're still trying to sell it, but at the same time, López Obrador decided, well, we're going to get rid of the plane by raffling it. So Mexico has this thing called the National Lottery. We've had the National Lottery for the longest time, ever since I was a kid. And I remember my parents would always buy lottery tickets, and I believe there's one or two places in Puerto Vallarta where you can buy them. Anyhow, you can buy a lottery ticket to win the plane. And I think the tickets are 500 pesos each. I've thought about getting one just for the sake of saying, well, I bought a lottery ticket for the plane. But I wouldn't even know where to get them here in Puerto Vallarta. So anyhow, the reason why I'm talking about the plane is not because it's going to change our lives or anything, but you may be hearing people in your circles talking about our presidential plane, and I just thought that I would share that with you. Let me switch to, let's see if there's any new interesting comments that we should address. Um, hmm. Well, Marty, ginormous is an awesome word. How could one not use it? Um, and Dave is, of course, sinking to my mindset. Yes, it's not a nice visual, let me tell you. Bum, biddy, bum, 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 bum. Okay. Um, well, yeah, Connie, think about it. I mean, what's beautiful about those photographs is like I've used at some of the luxury accommodations in commercial planes, like the Virgin Atlantic things and stuff like that. I have a good friend that just thrives on going on these first class experiences, and it's like they design the bathrooms and all the chingaderas that you need to behave like like you're on a plane, and they seem to be secure. I mean, the accommodations for Mexico's presidential plane look like one of them happy hotels that I ended up staying in Mexico City by accident. And one of these days, I'll tell you that adventure, but not today. Let me switch to the leisurely stuff. And today, for a change, I will not forget about the weather. Yes, Nina. Yes, I will not forget about the weather. In fact, we are right here. Let me bring Nina up. How are you, my dear? It's great to see you. The weather, well, it is 26 degrees Celsius, 78 Fahrenheit. It's not as warm as it's been, but humidity is very high, 93% humidity. So today is going to be one of those days. There is a 7% chance of rain according to Carrot Weather. And the weather forecast looks like rain starting in the afternoon for, oh, that's tomorrow. Never mind. Rain in the afternoon and evening for today. Rain starting in the afternoon for tomorrow. So and rain until morning on Thursday. So make sure that if you're out and about, you bring along your umbrella and your Crocs and anything that you need to make sure that you can survive the water. Speaking of surviving water, I really appreciated all the thoughtful comments that I got yesterday in private about my car. I went to go visit her after yesterday's broadcast, and I turned her on, and all the lights went on. I mean, she looks like a Christmas tree, but she won't actually start. So more than likely, I'm going to have to tow her and drop her off at the dealer, because if it's the electronics that got busted, only the dealers can work through that. So it's a good thing that these days we don't have that many places to go to, and I'll be Ubering from one place to another in the next few days. But thank you for the kind wishes. I hope that Grisabella will be back with us sometime in the near future. Moving on, interested in if it has a. David, you mean the plane? I have no idea, but that's very funny. And Rip, that is not chingalares, that's chingaderas. Chingaderas is what you use for just stuff. Stuff. It's a fabulous word. Not one that I would say in front of my mother, but it's a word that, it's great because it means everything. Chachkas, stuff, chingaderas, same thing. Anyhow, we may be in the middle of a pandemic, but Star Trek Discovery Season 3 starts streaming on October 15th, and I think that is absolutely wonderful. I know not everybody in the world cares about the future of my beloved Michael Burnham, but I do, and I thought you should want to know. Do you know what an EGOT is? Is anybody in the house that knows what an EGOT is? Well, for those of you that don't know, an EGOT or the EGOT Club is a club comprised of people that have won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. Those are the four initials for these fabulous awards. And there is a new member to the EGOT Club, and he was just announced a few days ago. And his name is, of course, Alan Menken. Alan Menken is an amazing composer. We know him from his work for The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Pocahontas. And he joins the number of people who have won all those four awards, which includes Rita Moreno, Audrey Hepburn, Whoopi Goldberg, and John Legend. There is a complete list on Wikipedia if you're curious of who has won all four awards. John Gilgold, Marvin Hamlish, Mel Brooks, Whoopi Goldberg, Scott Rudin, Robert Lopez. I believe he's a director. Anyhow, there are also some people that have won it through non-competitive awards. You know, those awards that are just given to people because somebody thinks that they should be given awards. Anyhow, congratulations to Alan Menken. Maybe this is a good day for everybody to get happy and watch Beauty and the Beast or one of those fun musicals and movies and whatnot. I miss What's Up with a Car. What's Up with a Car, Doreen, is that I acted irresponsibly, or I didn't foresee the the risk of driving down Avenida Francisco Villa in the middle of a storm. Avenida Francisco Villa is a street that gets really, really flooded. I have driven through a flooded Francisco Villa a number of times, but I had no idea that the storm was so bad. My car drowned effectively, and I found myself in the middle of the street at 11:30 at night with 4 inches of water covering my feet. I should have known better. I really should have. But yes, this is one of those rites of passage that happen when you live in Puerto Vallarta. But I was not damaged. My bills are paid. Well, most of them. There's food in the house. And Luna is very patiently taking notes to make sure that you get the show notes on time after the broadcast. So all is well. All is well. The car's going to be okay. Thank you for the. I ventured my comment just to make sure that you are here, Mark Hartman. Mark Hartman, we love you and we miss you, and we need to get together and just get together and listen to you talk about all these wonderful facts, Broadway musicals and singers, and all the wonderful stuff that you know. I don't have more things for you today, but I'm always grateful for your questions and your company. Yes, poor Grisabella, but you know she's been a good girl. She's been a good girl, and we're gonna be fine. It's nothing to worry about. Judy from Denver is watching. Judy, thank you very much for watching us. And Mark just blew me a little kiss. That makes me blush like a schoolgirl. I love you and I miss you, and I hope you're well in South Carolina, North Carolina, I forget, with your parents. And I hope things are going well with your happy hour. For the rest of us, it is only Tuesday. The week is just starting. If you enjoy these broadcasts, if you find something useful or inspiring, if your questions are answered, if you giggle a little, please remember that Buy Me a Coffee is a way in which we can support this broadcast, which is community-based. We have now over 100 members, and I am absolutely grateful for your trust on this project. I am so very glad that you put me to good use and you make me feel purposeful every single morning. I am more afraid, and I've said this out loud before, I'm not afraid of COVID. I am afraid of not waking up to feel or to be purposeful in the morning. And thanks to you, I am able to be purposeful every single day. And that makes me so freaking happy. It's not even funny. So that's it. If you have not explored your options at buymeacoffee.com, feel free to do so. If you are not of the mindset of supporting Buy Me a Coffee, Coffee and Headlines, that's perfectly fine too. Just remember to tell people about what we're doing here if you enjoy yourself. And of course, have a great day today. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay dry, and stay kind and stay in touch. And I will see you again soon. Take care.